Welcome to the Health Powered Productivity Podcast. I'm Marcey Rader, speaker, coach, and author, helping you reclaim your workday before it runs off with your sanity. Here, you'll learn sustainable habits to create a life you love without the overwhelm. Let's dive in. Today, we are talking trainings, the kind that are in person, the kind that cost money, time, and energy, and the kind that can be game changing if you do it right. I'm going to share some big don'ts that can sabotage sessions, some behind the scenes stories that will make you cringe or maybe laugh, and some do's that help you and your team actually use what you learn. So, whether you're leading or attending, this episode will help you stop wasting training dollars and start creating real impact. So, first, let's start with leaders. And think about this as like lessons earned, not just learned, but you've earned your battle scars. I have definitely earned some battle scars from giving keynotes, giving trainings, and being a participant. So one thing that I have recently started in 2025 is not allowing people to pop in and out. And this even goes for leaders. It's disruptive and it feels disrespectful. And I'm going to give you an example of a day that, where it just did not work. I was giving an in-person training at a company, and this happened 3 times that day with different leaders. I didn't know who they were. So do I need to stop? Do they need to make an announcement? First person comes in and he immediately goes and sits where the person from IT was sitting before, that had helped me to set everything up in the morning. And so I stopped and I think I said something like, oh, I'm good. I don't need anything. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I said, are you from IT? And he said, no. And I think he was a director or something. But he came in, sat where they sat, and immediately started working. So that's what I assumed. The second person came in later, stood in the back of the room, had his arms crossed. I didn't know, what he needed, so I stopped. I had everybody do an exercise. I walked back to the back of the room, introduced myself, and asked if he needed to make an announcement. And he said, no, I was just listening. I was just popping in. And then he proceeded to tell me that he liked what I was saying and so on. Later that day, another leader came in and, paced back and forth among the food table, opened up a muffin and actually started choking on the muffin, then opened up a loud, like soda. And it was just so distracting. And I've also had that happen where, ironically, the presentation was on focus and attention, and I had told everyone I wanted laptops closed, handwriting notes only. I explained all of this at the beginning and spent the beginning talking about why it's important to, to rid our areas of distractions and so on. And a leader came in halfway through the presentation, opened up her laptop, started working, and the irony is that she didn't give me a great review afterwards and said I didn't focus enough on the why and focus too much on the how to rid your environment of distractions. And she missed the why because she came in late. And then she multitasked the whole time. It could not have been in a better presentation. But I just don't understand as a leader why you would want to distract and also why you would want to set that example. So just, zoom out and think about how that looks, because I'm sure many of you have done it in the past and just think, oh yeah, that actually wasn't cool. I won't do that anymore. So it's now my rule, and no pop-ins or outs. If you have to leave early, please tell the speaker, tell the trainer. We don't know if you've gotten sick, if there's been an emergency, if you're coming back, should someone go check on you? Do you hate what we're saying? And so we have all these thoughts going on in our head. So just let us know if you have to leave early. If you are working on your laptop or checking your phone, what that signals to us is you don't value the session and you're not getting something out of it or you're bored. So please, laptops closed. Companies, you spend a lot of money on training, or you spend a lot of money going to this conference. Don't you want to be there? Just think about that. Um, Another big don't bring food in and people can see it and then make them wait to eat it. As soon as the food comes in, people are just like, what is that? Well, I'm hungry. They're not listening to the trainer or the speaker anymore. So either have the food set up outside the area or just know that when the food is ready, that, you're done. You're done. Environmental distractions, like a room being too hot or too cold. I find most places are way too cold. And I know why they make it colder than, too warm, but sometimes being too cold is absolutely distracting as well. And I have Raynaud's disease, and so I actually carry little hand warmers with me. And I've even posted photos of my fingers and hands online to show people, how blue or white or purple they are just from sitting in a conference space. And, just going back to the food thing, don't make people wait too long either. We had a situation where one of our trainers who has never been told that her session is too long, in years and years. And a couple of people in the feedback said, that the session was too long. But what we really think it was that they went until 1 p.m. or 12:45 p.m. before they had lunch, and it was Central Time. A lot of the people were East Coast, and so it was like 1:45 to them, and people were just kind of starting to get hungry. So for leaders specifically, you want to set clear expectations up front. So you want your laptops closed as well and be fully present, or just don't be there. You model that behavior. Designate a room monitor for logistics so that the speaker or the trainer isn't, letting people in that are late and, having to deal with the food and things like that. Don't cram the agenda, include buffers, and don't, include buffers like 15 minutes, 30 minutes. That gives people time to check their email if they need to, go to the bathroom. But also, if there's a great discussion happening, you don't want to, stop that. And speaking of the agenda, don't put exact times on the agenda because there are some people that will think that, if something was supposed to end at 1 and something started at 1:15 or, right after that, then they think, oh, we're going to miss out on the second piece and they get wrapped up in the time. So just put what's going to happen and just a loose agenda. Like maybe the times, but the participants don't have to know the exact times. You want an engaging room setup. Round tables, U-shape, those are good. Rows can be hard because there are always people looking at the backs of heads. Plan a wrap up or how we'll use this discussion. So if you are a team that's doing training, then think about like your next team meeting, kind of doing a recap and how you're going to use that. And then lastly, you want to think about scheduling time after the session for implementation. So if the training is 90 minutes, block out 2 hours on their calendar. If it is an all-day training, block out the next half day for people to actually implement and put into place whatever it is that they've learned. All right, so participant tips. Be honest. Can you really be present? If not, just don't attend. If you'll need to be on call or constantly check email, consider if it's better to attend a future session or just get a recording. I was in a standing room only breakout session once that if the fire department would have come in, we would have been in so much trouble. There were people I was sitting on half of a chair with someone, and that was because I couldn't even stand because it was so crowded. And the woman next to me, and this was at a speaking conference, and a conference for speakers. And she is a very high level speaker. So I was even more disappointed. She was on her phone the entire time. And so taking up space, she is totally dead weight in this room. And when the person speaking said, turn to the person next to you and discuss XYZ, I turned to her and she said, oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. What did she say? And I just wanted, well, I really just wanted to punch something. So I was just like, are you kidding me? You're so, this is so rude. So really think about if you can be present. We also want to just prep your mindset and arrive with a clear intention. What do you want to get out of it? And maybe write it down even before you start. Respect group dynamics. So, no side chats. The trainer, even if you're saying, like, this is the best thing I've ever heard, they don't know what you're saying. And so it's very distracting for the speaker because they're wondering, like, is this something that maybe everybody would want to hear? Or do you not like what I'm saying? Do you like what I'm saying? So think about your side conversations. Also, loud snacks. This might sound obvious, but it happens more than you'd think. So think about what kind of snacks you take. Wear layers to stay comfy, of course. And like I said, those portable hand warmers, if you're somebody that, gets cold hands, they're great. Practice active learning. So you don't want to take notes on a laptop. And I know some people are like, what? I always take notes on a laptop. Well, it does not get processed in your brain the same as handwritten notes because when we type, we tend to type word for word. When we are handwriting, we are writing what is most important. And we're summarizing the key points. Also, typing is very distracting to the people next to you. And I just say avoid it unless it is required unless it is required. And if you really want to, maybe they'll let you record the session if it's not already being recorded, and then you can just, look at the transcript. And then you always want to block time afterwards to recap. So just what I said for the leaders, you want to block time right after the training, even if it's just 20 minutes to distill your three big takeaways. I am presenting soon for a biotech company, and I had them build in. So they're doing about a 3/4 day training for about 120 people, and they built in the last 20 minutes for surprise. We want you to implement some of these things. And, my recommendation is just block the whole day because it's a 3/4 day training, but I'm still good with 20 minutes. I'm still very happy with that they would even do that. But think about blocking that in because company and individual, if you're paying for your own conference, you spend a lot of money. Don't you want people to put that into place? Don't you want to actually do something from that session? And then lastly, for some shared success factors on both sides, think about planning, high energy activities or discussions after breaks when people are more refreshed and avoid heavy theory right after lunch, like the food coma zone. And be careful about what you order for lunch. It should not be heavy pasta or something like that. Think about, clarifying engagement early. Some participants may think they can just listen passively, but clarify that active engagement, questions, activities, these will make it more valuable. We want people to add. Use visual timers for breaks. It's always great. As much as I can, I have a timer that's running on the screen that helps everyone come back on time without, any awkward reminders or late starts. So a visual timer works great. And I know for some conferences I speak at, they'll have like a bell or something. And when I used to be in a Vistage peer advisory group, they had this our chair had this really beautiful singing bowl that she would use. And then also, just build in micro recognitions during the training. Like, I love that example you just shared, Sarah. And so that people feel seen and more engaged. And, celebrate the small wins and, share insights. So, my final challenge is for you to really think, are you getting the full ROI on your trainings? How much money are you spending that, when you look back, you're not giving time for your people to execute, for you to execute, and really think through, that this 90 minutes is actually 2 hours, or maybe it's a half a day. So if you've got a great tip today from, learning as a leader, learning as a participant, share this episode with a colleague or a leader who needs to hear it. And, just remember, show up fully or don't show up at all. Thanks for tuning in to the Health Powered Productivity Podcast. If you got a great tip or insight, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend so more people can learn sustainable habits to create a life they love. Want more like this? Grab my book, Reclaim Your Workday, or connect at helloraderco.com.